Tory budget from an NDP budget. Is that what it's come down to, really? There are no choices for any of you anymore?
I don't think, I mean, I just don't share that view at all. I think there are choices. I think we've made them. It's fair to say that the range of choices may be a little narrower in the reality of governing than some might like, but the fact of the matter is what may define anybody that's in government that wants to be taken seriously is we have to pay as we go. We can't afford to let the deficit chalk up to the point where it becomes unaffordable.
Let's look at some of the choices that you're making. When you cut programs, government programs,
right.
which you've been doing,
right.
and which your finance minister stood up at Queen's Park today and said he was doing more of because it was time to reduce government. When you look at your own unemployment predictions, it's going to stay between 9 and 10 for the next 5 years. That's we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people there. You then have unemployed people that you have to support in one way and from whom you do not collect revenues or taxes. The Conference Board, you've read its study. It says that your measures of tax increases and cutting spending means that the growth rate in the province of Ontario over the next 2 years will be cut by 25%. Then CUPE and Infometrica did a study. They said 70,000 fewer jobs in Ontario because of your policy.
But I don't think, if I may say so, and I can show you equal studies from the Toronto Dominion Bank or from other people, and I can tell you the whole range of opinion, which says, and I think it's good to have this debate. I encourage the debate. How big do you want the deficit to be? When do you want to pay for the deficit? When do you want to pay for it? Next year? Free beer tomorrow? Or is it the year after you want to pay for it? When do you think the day of reckoning is going to come on this? Provinces are having to face up to this. Federal government may have the luxury of putting it off for a year or two. I don't know. But my own view is they don't. And we certainly don't as a province, which means it has to be paid for. And I think that those who are doing the projecting had better come to terms with the impact of a debt in the country of over $500 billion on an accumulated basis, and the fact that that's a job killer. That's not a job creator. That's a job killer, because that's $50 billion of taxes that have to be raised to pay for that every year. And that number will go up to 60 and 70 and 80 and 90 if you don't deal with it. We're dealing with it. And we're dealing with it honestly and straightforwardly. You cannot solve the deficit problem this country has without dealing with the revenue issue.
That's the conclusion. That's the conclusion. Higher unemployment.
No, I'm sorry.
Price is that the economy and the growth is going to have to be slowed.
No, I'm sorry. If you leave the deficit to continue to expand, the price then will be more jobs lost, and the price then will be higher unemployment, and the price then will be less growth. You know, we have to get this thing in some perspective. I don't think that simply letting the deficit go nuts is a great job creator.
I don't think anybody's saying let the deficit go nuts. I think people are saying that there will be an impact of your programs and the choices that you've made, as you referred to
I don't share
earlier.
that. I'm sorry, I just don't share that view in terms of some of the comments that I've seen made. I just think that it's unrealistic to think that you can have huge debts accumulate and those things not affect jobs. We think what we're doing is creating more jobs. We think it's balanced. We think it's going to create a better climate for public investment, for private investment, than any of the alternatives.
You know, there are those who say that you're just crying wolf, that in fact Ontario hasn't hit the debt wall at all, that the foreign investors are going to invest in Ontario because they'd rather be here than Eastern Germany because it's a little more stable, a little more predictable, that with some different kind of accounting you could, you know, if you want to talk about your future investments, maybe put that on the different side of the ledger, that in fact you've created almost a hysteria, a debt crisis hysteria.
Okay, let's look at that. First of all, you know, I'm not afraid that people won't lend us the money. I'm afraid that people will. I mean, the issue isn't whether or not people will lend us money. You can always go out and borrow money. I mean, you can go out to, at some point, you go to a loan shark, I suppose. But I mean, you got to pay them off. And the issue is how much is it going to cost the taxpayers year over year to accumulate debts that don't go away? You can't not pay them. So, you know, I'm sorry, these are real. Our estimates are based on the best judgment that our people have in terms of what the costs are going to be and what's happened to revenues.
But do you think it's a crisis? Do you think unless Ontario put in a $2 billion set of tax hikes today that you had your back against the wall, the jig was up?
I think it's a problem. I think it's an issue that has to be faced up to. And I would argue that politicians who go around saying that they're going to solve the national debt problem without dealing with revenues are kidding themselves. I mean, they're charming carnival barkers of various kinds. You can't solve this problem without facing up to the need for real expenditure control, looking hard at programs, seeing which ones work and which ones don't, changing the ones that don't, and having the courage to do that, and having the courage to say to people, we've got good programs here, we need to pay for them. And that all those things are going to create confidence and create jobs, because we'll be seen as a country and as a province to be dealing seriously with problems that have to be dealt with.
Where's the incentive in your budget when you put a $100 million corporate minimum tax on companies? Where's the incentive given that, NAFTA, FTA, for companies and corporations to stay in your province and create those jobs?
There's a corporate minimum tax in the United States, Pamela. There's a corporate minimum tax in most jurisdictions. Why wouldn't corporations that are making money be prepared to pay something towards the benefits of living and being corporate citizens?
But you're the
in a
one that
province?
stands up and says, listen, with the free trade agreement, they're already fleeing and people are already leaving the province of Ontario.
The free tax,
what are you going to keep? How are you going to keep
the free trade agreement hasn't made it any easier. NAFTA, if it passes, which I hope it doesn't, won't make it any easier, because the problem with free trade is we don't have access to the United States market. We don't have the kind of guaranteed access that we were promised by Mr. Mulroney and the negotiators. So that hasn't happened. But I think that this is a good place to live. It's a good place to invest. People can live profitably here, work profitably here. We have a good health care system. Our payroll costs are lower than the United States. President Clinton's problems are manifest. I mean, would people rather operate there than here? Those are judgments that are being made. Why has Chrysler decided to locate here for its new expansion? Why is Ford expanding? It's much more positive. I think the main risk problem we face, the main risk we run, is frankly is people allowing themselves to get talked into a deeper kind of problem than we really have as a country. And I must say, as a Canadian, I get troubled by.
Well, what do you mean? The problem isn't as serious as you've just been telling us it is?
No, I think the economy is in better shape than we're giving ourselves credit for. I think that there are more jobs being created than we're giving ourselves credit for. I think there's more prospects for recovery than we're giving ourselves credit for.
But you're talking about 9 to 10% unemployment in Ontario for the next 5 years. Is that acceptable?
No, of course it isn't. And I think we can get that number down. I think we can continue to get it down. But again, look around the world and ask yourself the question, this is a problem that's affecting every country in the Western world. Is it reasonable to think that a provincial government is going to unilaterally be able to solve this problem? How much do you want me to spend to be able to solve this problem? Another $4 or $5 billion to get the unemployment down 1 point? We all have to work together at this problem.
Well, we all are talking about choices, and it's your word. You said you did make some, and the criticism is coming at you from both sides, and some people looking at the $100 million corporate tax and saying that's a disincentive, they'll leave. Others saying it's less than the tax Ronald Reagan imposed. You could have been tougher if you were really serious. You could have raised more money there and not imposed so many taxes on working and middle-income people.
Well, I guess one of the conclusions you reach at this job, and I think any job like it, is that after a while you do what you have to do, and what you feel is the right thing to do. You strike the balances you think are fair, and you ask people to express their best judgment. And you accept the fact that in the climate in which we're working, there'll be all kinds of criticism and flack. There'll be the sort of the rant for 3 minutes from people who come out and say this, that, and the other. You accept that.
But you're getting criticized from within your own family. The Stephen Langdon comments of the last couple of weeks, you know what the unions are doing. They're all voting to withdraw sending funds to you because they don't think the choices you are making are the right ones. They think that there is another way.
Well, again, let's be very blunt about that. I'm determined to lead a party in a government that takes the economy seriously enough to be able to deal with the problems that we face. And I think that's what a New Democratic Party government at its best should do. We don't have the luxury of borrowing forever and ever and ever. We have to keep things in perspective. We have to do things in a balanced way. And we have to do everything we can to keep the focus on jobs. And whether the criticism comes from wherever it comes from, you listen to it, but frankly, I don't think you sit around in this job waiting for praise. If you did, you'd be waiting for quite a while, no matter what you did. I mean, there's a certain degree to which a culture of grievance and a culture of negativity takes over, and I think that the biggest mistake we could make as Canadians would be allowing ourselves to get pushed around by that. I'm very positive about the country, very positive about the province, and about the recovery that's underway, and about the jobs that are being created. And my job, frankly, is to ask people to put some of that criticism in perspective.
When you are, as you are, in the midst of these social contract talks, and you know what the unions have said, they, you know, come to us and make us part of this process. Don't tell us that you're going to take $2 billion out of our hides one way or the other. Is that essentially what it's come down to? Your budget presupposes that you have struck a deal, that you will be able to get that money from the public employees.
The budget doesn't presuppose that we've made a deal. The budget presupposes that we're the government, and we have an obligation to the people of the province to say what the finances of the province are going to be like. And we have been saying to the public sector unions publicly since April the 23rd, and for several weeks before that, and a number of conversations which a lot of us were having about the overall financial situation, that money had to come out, and that we would rather not take it out in jobs, and because we would rather not do that.
But will you if you have to?
We will stick to the numbers. The numbers are firm. And are very clear, and the negotiations that take place will take place around how do we achieve that target.
So if there are no wage concessions, if they don't agree to take some cutbacks, then you will fire more people and to meet your numbers. The numbers are the bottom line.
We will do what is necessary to meet the budgetary targets of the government.
And then you are back full circle. If more people are on the unemployment rolls, you've got a revenue problem and your deficit's going up again.
We have also given people choices, and we're asking people to make choices, and asking people to choose to join us in terms of understanding that there are trade-offs to be made in the real world, and that's what participating in the real world is all about. People understanding that you can't get everything you want. You've got to learn to work through things and to come out the other end with a better result. And I think most people in the province understand that. I think most people understand that. That's the way things are right now, and we're determined to proceed.
Premier Rae, thanks very much for talking with us.
Stay with us when we come back. More on one of today's other top stories, the laying of charges in an infamous murder case.
Niagara police call it the end of the beginning. Where will the trials of Paul and Carla Teal lead? Some educated perspectives when Primetime returns.
There's nothing worse than smelly shoes. That's why Odor Eater's insoles contain activated charcoal, the world's most powerful odor destroyer. Odor Eaters, so strong they actually knock the odor out of your shoes and out of your life.
Go away, Grant.
How you doing, Ed?
I don't want to buy anything.
Fine.
Look, costs are up, sales are flat. I need revenue.
And you don't want to know about our new long-distance savings plan.
Nope.
Big savings, Ed.
Yeah, and I'm such a big spender.
Doesn't matter. You can still save on long distance with TelePlus.
Make more sales calls.
For the same money.
TelePlus. Makes sense.
Can I sit down now?
Nope.
AGT. We bring your world to you.
Worse than smelly shoes. That's why Odor Eater's insoles contain activated charcoal, the world's most powerful odor destroyer. Odor Eaters, so strong they actually knock the odor out of your shoes and out of your life.
It's a super summer kickoff at Hunter's Trailer and Marine in Edmonton. We're kicking off summer with 5 days of historic bargains on motorhomes, travel trailers, fifth wheels, truck campers, boats, outdoor accessories. The list goes on. Plus, a special $1 million volume purchase of RVs, now on location and priced with record-setting reductions. There's something for everyone, but hurry, it all ends 6 p.m. Monday. Hunter's Trailer and Marine Super Summer Kickoff in Edmonton. Don't miss it.
Residents of southern Ontario have waited 3 months to hear today's news that Paul Teal, formerly Paul Bernardo, has been charged with the murder of 2 teenagers. Yesterday, his wife Carla was charged with manslaughter in the same cases. For 2 years, these unsolved murders have haunted the area where the girls lived and died. But the charges against Teal and his wife may have only added to the number of unanswered questions about the killings and about the 2 people who have been charged.
Some of those questions. We're joined now by reporter Geoff Elwand, who has been covering this case for CBC Radio, and by criminal lawyer Maurice Manning. Geoff, start us off. The police have been extremely tight-lipped on this case since it started. What do we know, if we know anything, about what body of evidence they have against these two people?
Well, Peter, I guess the only thing we can say for absolute certain is that the police feel they've got a case because, after all, they have charged Teal. But what specific evidence they've got, we don't know. The house where Teal lived in a suburb of St. Catharines, there's been an intensive and exhaustive search of that house. They've gone through everything. They've ripped stuff out, they've moved stuff out. Hundreds of pieces of potential evidence have been moved out of that house and sent to Toronto for forensic analysis. But specifically what they have, we don't know. What this does is raise a very interesting question. Why, when Bernardo was originally arrested back on February the 17th, why did the police then say that they were about to charge him, and why did they subsequently wait 3 months?
When you raise that question, what answer do you get?
They say it was an intricate and difficult case. That's it.
Morris Manning, anything odd in that?
It's very odd that they would announce that they're going to charge someone and then wait a period of months. What they usually do, of course, is they charge someone and then they firm up proof later on. That's acceptable. It tells us, I think, that something happened between the time of the announcement and the time they subsequently decided to lay the charge.
Well, you've seen a lot of cases over the years. What could some of those possibilities be in terms of what might have happened?
Possibly someone came forward after the announcement and gave them further information that they wanted to check up on and other leads. That's not unusual.
Okay, well, there were charges being laid in the last 24 hours. One suspect, the husband, charged with 2 counts of murder. The other suspect, the wife, charged with manslaughter. Now, what does that tell you? Different charges, same case, same deaths involved.
It could tell us a number of things. It could tell us that the Crown Attorney or the police didn't feel that the wife came within the parameters of the charge of murder. It could tell us that her role was different from his. It could tell us that negotiations have been carried on to some degree with respect to the appropriate charge to lay.
Now, what does that mean? Negotiations carried on. Are you talking about the possibility that a deal could exist?
Well, according to public statements by her lawyer, there have been intensive negotiations with the Crown Law Office for several months.
Jeff, what are you hearing on that?
Absolutely. I was talking to George Walker after Homolka appeared in the St. Catharines courtroom yesterday, and he confirmed that he'd been in discussions with the Crown, with Mr. Siegel from the Crown's office since February. Long and extensive discussions, apparently. So he was asked, are you going to plead guilty or not guilty in this case? And all he would say is that they were going to attempt to speed the case through the court, that they were waiving their right to a preliminary hearing, they were waiving their right to a jury trial, that they wanted a swift conclusion to it. Again, the question was asked, are you going to plead guilty or not guilty? And he told the reporters, you draw your own conclusion.
When you hear that, that's what you're talking about, Morris, the possibility of a deal.
Yes, and it's not unusual for the Crown and defense lawyers to sit down and discuss the appropriate charge, because even though several people are involved in a particular enterprise, it doesn't mean that they're all going to be charged with exactly the same offense.
All right, the husband is in custody, the wife is out on bail. Out on bail, $100,000 plus.
$110,000 according to the paper.
What does that tell you? Is that odd in a case like this?
I would have thought that in this kind of case, certainly the case law indicates, and my experience has indicated, that Crowns usually ask for a lot higher bail in this kind of case. And if they're going to agree to bail at all, there's a very short time between the charge and the trial date. And when you have that short period of time, the usual course of action is to keep people in custody.
Now, conditions, there are a number of conditions placed on her. Are those conditions, would you describe those as stringent conditions?
Well, they're viewed as almost a house arrest kind of situation, although according to the media, she doesn't appear to be confined to the home. She does have to report in on a daily basis by telephone and to live with her parents. That's not unusual at all.
What is unusual that you're looking at as a criminal lawyer with a lot of expertise in cases like this? What is unusual to you when you look at this case and the way it's unfolding now?
I think what's unusual is the different charges that have been laid, and that we have to wait to see what the answers are as to why, and the fact that she did get bail.
Geoff, you've been a part of an enormous media contingent from not only the St. Catharines area or Toronto, but across the country and actually across the continent down there. The impact that the media has had on this case in terms of the way the police are dealing with it. What are your observations on that?
There has been an enormous amount of criticism of the media, the way the media has handled it. There have been complaints, for example, the Toronto Sun ran a picture of from Bernardo's wedding on the front page. There have been complaints about certain revelations of certain evidence in the Toronto Star and other publications. I'm certainly not trying to hang it on the Sun and the Star altogether. There's been a lot of criticism. How valid that criticism is, I don't know. Because when you get down to it, the one person who is saying that they feel that Teal can get a fair trial is his lawyer.
The media play, Morris, it was interesting listening to one of the investigators today saying we're at the end of the beginning. We're not at the beginning of the end in this process. So I guess there are many steps to take yet in this trial as it continues, and the media's involvement throughout this process. What to watch for?
I think you have to watch to see what the actual plea or not plea, the trial of each one of them will end up being. I think that if there is a plea by anyone, you have to look to see what the sentence is. I think that you also have to look to see what kind of investigation was carried out and when.
If there has been a plea or a deal made in terms of the wife, when would be the first time we'd realize that for certain?
Well, a court date has been set for June the 7th, according to the papers, and that's what you should look for.
And it would be evident then?
Not necessarily, because there could be a trial.
All right. Morris Manning, Geoff Elwand, thanks very much for your insight on this. We'll be back in a moment with this story.
Facing extinction, a Yukon town is running out of options following the shutdown of its 2 mines.
It certainly isn't a lack of ore.
But world prices are too low to make it profitable, and the jobs are gone.
It's been good here, we've enjoyed it here, but time to go.
Farewell to Faro when prime time returns.
Hello, allergy sufferers. It's me, Grass. Can we talk? So, I make you a little sick when I pollinate? Pollen schmallen. Stop kvetching and take Claritin already. It works fast on your itchy eyes, runny nose, and sneezing. And for extra allergic congestion, take Claritin Extra. But why listen to me? Claritin is a non-drowsy brand doctors recommend most. So, what are you waiting for?
Hey, it's Off's Skintastic Spray.
It feels great on.
And keeps bugs off.
That's Off! Skintastic! A quick, cool spritz feels great.
Not greasy.
Its light, clean scent smells great.
Not stinky.
That's Off! Skintastic! He's got it on.
She's got it on.
We've got it on.
Do you?
Do you?
Off Skintastic Spray!
It feels great on.
And keeps bugs off. From SC Johnson Wax.
This MotoMaster tire, this battery, this motor oil. These MotoMaster products are all made by well-known manufacturers. But they'd prefer we not mention their names, because they sell similar products themselves under national brand names and charge more. But buy them as MotoMaster, you get the best of both worlds. National brand quality that costs a lot less. MotoMaster, quality automotive products for a lot less.
Tonight on Canada at Large, we go north to Yukon to visit a mining town that is in danger of becoming a ghost town. Mining is the #1 industry in Yukon, and Kura Incorporated used to be one of the biggest employers there. But since December, Kura has closed 2 of its Yukon mines. One of them was in Faro. It's about 250 kilometers northeast of Whitehorse. The population is 1,800 and falling every day. Our northern correspondent, Eric Sorensen, went to Faro to see how the town is managing without the mine.
Sitting idle, the mine, the equipment, and the men who used to work here. David Pratt was one of them, but he's not sitting and waiting any longer.
We've got enough money to get the heck out of here now, and if we wait around till winter, we'll be broke and can't do it, so.
Better to do it now than wait.
Yeah, we're getting, well, the getting's good.
The getting used to be good in Faro, Curragh's mine produced 500,000 tons of lead and zinc concentrate a year, and ore trucks headed out every 20 minutes with a full load. But this spring, the ore trucks stopped rolling, and as Curragh sank deep into debt because of its other investments and plummeting metal prices, nervous contractors whisked their equipment off Curragh's property. But it was the town of Faro that was left out in the cold when the mine shut its doors.
People lost their jobs and they're about to lose their homes and being told to leave the Yukon.
Every day there are more empty homes, empty storefronts, and empty desks at school.
You never know if one day you could live here and the next day you won't, so it's confusing.
Like a lot of mining towns, Faro has seen its share of ups and downs. In the mid-'80s, the population plummeted from almost 2,000 to fewer than 100 people when the mine closed under previous owners. It took 6 years for Faro to climb back to where it was before, but now that roller coaster is headed down again.
I've been down this road before, twice.
Jim McLaughlin owns the local theater. He stuck it out the last time the mine closed and intends to do it again.
You don't have a lot of cash reserve to carry their stuff through for many months at a time, and people have been caught without money for rent, without money for payments, and that's what's making it tough.
Faroites, as they're called, haven't given up on saving the mine and saving their town. They almost stormed government leader John Ostashik's office, demanding the government put up more money to help Curragh.
We want Johnny! We want Johnny!
We don't have enough money to solve Curragh's financial problems, even if we so desired.
John Ostashik says Yukon is in the lurch in part because Ottawa is not helping out.
Mining is a federal responsibility in the north, and yet the federal government has walked away from it and left us to handle it.
And they've walked away from it in a sense because of what happened at West Rae, do you think?
Well, I believe that has a lot of bearing on it.
A year ago, just as Ottawa was negotiating a loan guarantee for Faro, Curragh's West Rae mine blew up.
We don't want to link West Rae and...
Ottawa lost more than $80 million on West Rae, and Ottawa and Curragh haven't talked about money for Faro since.
It doesn't look very promising for some form of federal assistance at this time.
So Curragh is looking for other investors and showing off an untapped lead-zinc deposit at the mine. So it's not the case then that there's a lack of ore here?
No, it certainly isn't a lack of ore. There's something like 26 to 28 million tons of high-grade ore.
But even if Curragh finds more funding, depressed metal prices may keep production shut down indefinitely. That's why Darcy Motion is going to a federal assistance office that has set up shop in an abandoned townhouse in Faro.
Will my benefits be extended for going to school?
The former Curragh worker wants to retrain and relocate.
First and foremost, I'm hoping the mine will open up again, but we've lost a lot of hope in that respect. So I'm looking to re-educate myself.
The owner of the town's only grocery store is getting ready for hard times.
Leave through here and get them on sale and try to get rid of them.
Donna Smith has cut her staff from 32 to 8, and the 3 stores she owned are now under one roof. So the produce section now shares space with blouses from her clothing store.
It's like I'm going backwards in life instead of forwards. It wasn't supposed to end up this way.
We have to call another town meeting.
A citizens committee to save the town has regular strategy sessions. Faro has shown a resilience that has eluded other mining towns that have disappeared.
There's so many people here that own their own homes that won't go. And I'm one of them. I'm not going anywhere.
Faro may be shrinking, but it won't easily be rubbed off the map. Eric Sorensen, CBC News, Faro, Yukon.
We'll be right back with a final look at tonight's top news stories.
Sometimes the grass is greener on both sides of the fence. Look at your home hardware dealers. They have all kinds of helpful and friendly advice about your lawn and garden, and they always give a great price. So, front yard great price, backyard friendly advice, or front yard friendly advice, backyard great price. Like this. 50-foot home gardener reinforced hose for just $12.77. So, come on into home and get the jump on spring.
Home hardware, home of the handyman.
Since 1877, these British courts have handed down verdicts of international importance. Here in a place called Wimbledon, in a city called London, and Canadian Airlines International can bring you here. Because with service to 7 European cities, we bring Canada to the rest of the world.
When you're
preparing lunch, they're comparing facts. When you're sipping soup, they're seeking stories. When your clock strikes midday, their theme music plays. Tina Sribotniak and Kevin Newman bring you Midday, weekdays at noon.